welcome to another episode of Tactical Tuesday. We're going to cover a slight summary of Game of the Month, where that is right now. If you want to still participate in Game of the Month, I think there's about a week and a half left until I collect and review all of the log files. All the log files will be listed on the Discord server, which you can join by clicking on the link down below in the description. It will be below the description, and therefore you can access all of those files from Game of the Month. Also, we cover a number of game situations in terms of S3, the simple equation, Americans crossing that open ground, maybe pressed for time, things we can do to make that adjustment, to make that assault a little bit more effective, and just various different ways to attack and come across that open ground. Also, we also cover some questions, general questions that just come up during gameplay. Are we applying this rule correctly? Are we applying that rule correctly? You know, a lot of times things get foggy sometimes, and you just kind of like, you question yourself. So we go into a number of those situations where it's a common situation, and we just go through the application of those typical rules. So that'll be near the end. But anyway, enjoy this episode of Tactical Tuesday, and let's get started. Week for results to come in, and if nothing comes in by, let's say like Sunday or so, I'll review these this week, probably even tonight, and kind of pull some stuff, read your guys' comments of what you guys posted. A lot of guys have posted a lot of stuff, on the ASL Scenario Archive, which is cool. A lot of stuff's getting populated there. I think Scott's got the his post of the ASL Game of the Month with Dead of Winter, and I think Dave is playing Dead of Winter as well, and I think I've got a game lined up with Scott as well for that. So so that'll at least be the ASL side. So what I'll probably do with the ASL side, somebody asked me about that the other day. I'm not sure what conversation it came through, but what I'll likely do is I'll likely set up an ASL sort of Tactical Tuesday if you guys are interested in that. That most likely will be on the weekend, simply because Dave Ramsey's, it might give Dave an opportunity to involve himself in the discussion as well, which, you know, considering he's hosting on his site, I'll give him the opportunity to be able to participate in that, and so also would allow the European players, if we start at like at noonish or 1ish, it'll be 9 p.m. their time, probably no later than noon, maybe even 10 a.m. in the morning. I don't know, we'll have to fish out that time, but just because of the time separation between at least the Pacific Standard Time and Greenwich Mean Time, GMT 0 or +1 or +2, it would allow those guys, just like you guys on the East Coast, you know, at 5:30, it's 8:30 your time. It'll sort of be the same transition. So, but that'll be for ASL. I don't know how that'll go, but I mean, I didn't know how Tactical Tuesday would go. So you just kind of go with it, and if it works, it does. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, I remember the time Mark and I were describing John's game with the hip stuff. It's just Mark and I in the room, and we had a really, really good discussion on just bouncing ideas off each other, you know, the things what one side could do, one side can't do, things like that. So even with one other player, if you sit down with one other guy in your discussions and you just chat over the strategy of a game, then it could bring out a lot of good things that you probably won't see during the hastiness of like a combat. Like if you're engaged in the scenario, you're worried about guys breaking and things like that, and the other, you're not looking at the grand strategy. You're just looking at, okay, shit, my leader's broken. It's like crunch time, instead of, okay, do I really care if that leader's broken or whatever like that. So it allows you to step back and analyze it freely without distraction of winning, losing units or the side. So that's kind of the idea behind that. But yeah, I enjoyed our conversation. Probably what the hell is that? A month ago now, Mark? Something like that?
Oh, that was like at least 2 months ago.
Man, it's time flies. I just tell you what, gentlemen. So
Hey, Stu, I've got it here. I've got I think the initial setup I can load.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I just don't want to spend 20 minutes looking for it if you guys got it.
No, yeah, I've got it right here.
Okay,
Hold on.
very cool.
It'll be not necessarily a good setup, but it'll at least have the order of battle.
Yeah. That's all we really need. So sync on Craig. If you guys are.
Yeah, hold on. Let me load it first.
The scenario card's in the TAC Tuesday comments channel.
Very cool. Oh yeah, very good. No, very nice. Yes, pops right up. Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Yep.
So Stu, I've got two. Well, I guess a couple quick things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me. Everybody's got this. I can always load it back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
One is a quick question on. Let's see if I can find it here. I'll have everybody sync with me again. Where did I save it? Sorry.
No worries.
It was a. I was doing a retaking Veerville, and hopefully I can find where I saved it. We were in a close combat, and it was kind of a curious little spot where we ended up. So yeah, go ahead and sync.
Okay.
And you'll see the melee in the middle.
Yeah, let me switch this here. Gotcha. Oh, my screen's all screwed up. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened in the Coliseum baptism, but my my dice weren't showing. The bottom part of the dice weren't showing up. So the first roll you wouldn't see anyway. All right, that is a stack of shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a mess of a scenario there.
Wow. That's some serious fighting going on.
So, and the way we ended up there was the Americans entered into close combat, and it was in melee, and this is a little bit further on, but the Germans here had actually fired into the hex.
Yep.
Figuring, well, my 8 morale squads had a better chance of surviving, and it actually worked out.
Yep.
So the American squad broke, and the leader pinned, and the extra American half squad wasn't in there, so I had a chance to do some damage, but ended up still in more melee. So at any rate, so we were trying to kind of figure this out, and in particular the leader, how that all factors in with the German attacking and the American attacking. What numbers count, and
okay, so
how do you figure that?
Right, so the pin status is essentially what's throwing us a curveball on the leader, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so how would the pin status apply to, let's say, the 747? If the 747 were pinned, how would that impact the combat?
He would attack at half firepower.
Okay. Could he still combine? Could the 8-1 still stack with him in terms of making a defensive cohesive unit, and then attack and apply as a modifier in the whole 9 yards?
Yes.
Right. So if the pin were on the 747, it's 3.5 firepower plus the leader, which would be 4.5 firepower, right? Because the leader would add 1.
Right.
And then he would attack at whatever odds it may be. Plus, he would get to add the -1. Now, with the leader being pinned, it can still stack with the 747. But what would his defensive strength be when stacking with the 747?
I guess then it'd be half.
His defensive strength.
His defense would be 1, would still be 1.
Right. But what about his offensive strength?
I think 1/2.
1/2. And would he be able to apply his leadership modifier?
No.
Nope.
Okay. So essentially, the pin leader is just a half firepower. So,
but I wasn't necessarily sure if he could then also be stacked with the squad, because if you were talking about, say, defensive fire or prep fire, or I guess prep fire wouldn't apply, but advanced fire or defensive fire, if you had the pinned leader, the leader could not direct the fire; it'd be the squad firing on its own.
I think it has to be on broken leader. We could check that, but regardless. In close combat, so you're talking if he wasn't in close combat,
right?
If he wasn't,
and I know we're mixing, rules here, but we're, again, the two of us are trying to kind of figure out how to resolve this.
Right. So again, starter kit might be slightly different. It says so right here. Any single man counter in close combat has an attack and defense of 1. You may stack alone, but if it does, it must also defend alone. And any number of single man counters, which is usually let heroes come into involved with this, but any number of single man counters may combine with a multi-man counter, or any other single man counter may make a close combat attack by adding their firepower together. And it says defends in CC as a group. It attacks with by adding its 1 firepower, and then a leader may direct. A CC it attacks and defends with by applying his leadership modifier in close combat, in addition to adding his firepower to the strength attack. A leader may not use his leadership if to modify attack that he makes alone. So then you would look up pin status, correct? So so essentially that sets the foreground that he gets to add. He has a firepower of 1. He gets to add his firepower, and he gets to apply his leadership. Now, obviously, that's not. I mean, you don't have to repeat every single rule section in the game, because then the rule book would be like 8 bazillion pages long. So let's look up pin status and see how that affects. Sometimes it will say certain things, and sometimes it won't.
Right. It says kind of stop at the top of page 10. So pinned
Page
units,
10, good deal.
Yeah, pinned units have their firepower halved, the rate of fire is lost, and the pinned leader may not use his leadership DRM.
Okay, there you go. So if that's all the pin status does, half firepower, no move, no advance, and no application of leadership modifier. It says no application of leadership modifier, correct?
Pinned leader may not use his leadership DRM.
Okay. Okay, so the next question that that Craig has is, what about leadership direction? Now, and that's where sometimes it can get sticky in ASL, where if you have leadership direction to prevent cowering, and I'm not sure where cowering is in here, that's where you would look at that particular question.
Cowering doesn't take place during close combat, so that's not an issue.
Right.
So, kind of the question was, could the Germans, could they just attack the squad without considering the leader?
Oh no.
Is the leader,
no, because you decide. Yeah, each side decides their stack,
right,
so to speak.
Right.
If you as the leader decide you're going to bind your fate to the squad, then the German can't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess part of the question though was, all right, that leader is pinned, so is he still stacked? Can the Americans still say, well, he's stacked with the squad even though he's pinned?
Correct. He can't.
And we were kind of talking about, well, what is this? Okay, in real life, what is this? Okay, well, we got this leader. He's pinned. He's hiding underneath the table while the rest of the squad is out there, fighting. So,
right. Right, but he's still
he has
there.
to
But he's still
attack
he's,
with the squad. Too,
yeah, he's still with
The
it.
rule stipulates he has to attack with the squads. As long as he attacks with him, he's
right.
bound to.
Yeah.
It's just that his firepower will be half. You know. Yeah, most people think of stacking the leader with a squad just to defend with the leader, but in certain cases, like in this case, where you have a 7 firepower unit with the Americans, if that was a 4 firepower squad, obviously the Germans in this instance can only stack with one of the squads. Now the Americans, by having the leadership and by virtue of adding his firepower, assuming it's full firepower to the squad, he now gets a 2-to-1 versus like a 3-to-2. And so certain cases, it makes a difference. If that was a 6-6-6, it would simply just be a 3-to-2 against a 4-6-7. And the leader technically doesn't make any difference. It usually makes the difference on the defensive end, where like the 9-1, the 5-4-8, right? If that was so he's got 6 firepower there, well, 6 defense strength there. If the Americans had a 6-6-6, that would be a 1-to-1 for the Americans, and then a 1-to-1 on the backside where the Germans are attacking. So typically when I think about leaders,
firepower and he's stacking the squad, and then they just resolve it that way.
Right,
so,
right.
We played it right. That's how we played it.
Yeah, and his leadership does. Yeah, his leadership wouldn't apply. It's just that in this case, he pretty much doesn't do anything but stays there. Now, I have a question for you. When wouldn't you want your leader to stack with a unit, defend with a unit? Essentially attack separately.
What if he's CX? Well, that's still not going to affect the other guy. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, CX would. A CX would. You were correct. A CX would add a +1 to the dice roll. Yeah, that's actually really huge.
Okay.
That's a good example. To be honest with you, I hadn't thought about that. But the example that I'm kind of might be inferring to is essentially it would give the opposing player the opportunity. And this is, of course, late game, end game sequence. This is like checkmates coming up. So it's not like you don't want to do it in turn 1. Is what it would do is it allows the German to attack the leader separately. So let's say in this case, let's say he has a 1-to-1. It's not the case here, but if he has a 1-to-1 with his stack versus your stack, and you say, okay, my 7-0 or 8-0 leader is not defending with the squad. What's he most likely going to do? Can he still attack everyone in that? Can he still attack anybody he wants to in that hex? Sure. But what it does is, especially in certain scenarios based on control, if you split your units up and it allows him to sort of bait his attack to, well, I could kill the leader and then I could kill the other units later because the leader weakens the other guys. If he kills the squad or the leader, the other guy's still stuck in melee. So essentially what you're doing is you're prolonging the melee if you're giving him multiple shots. And so, because he obviously could attack them together, but if you bait him with that particular shot, let's say it's like right here, it's 8 firepower to his 11 firepower. If the leader splits separately from the 747, that's going to be a 1-to-1 -1, right? So you can go to 1-to-1 -1. And if you say, hey, he's not, especially if he's pinned, he's not adding any firepower to you. He's not really doing anything to your unit, only making 8 defense. And in this case, it's still going to be 1-to-1. So you say, hey, I'm not defending with the squad. And he says, okay, I'm going to attack one of my 548s against your leader, and the other 548 and the 9-1 against your squad. So what does that do? Your leader's pretty much going to sacrifice himself to give the squad a 1-to-2 close combat from the other units that the German splits from. It either gives you squad a slightly better chance to survive. Here, let me envision this over here. We'll put it over here. And we'll change this. I'm gonna clone this guy because normally you don't really want to. Actually, yeah. Let's pit him. Let's pin him because his modifier doesn't apply anyway. This is actually a really good example. It's actually an advanced example because normally you want to put your 8-1 with your unit, because he wants the -1 modifier. But if we've got the Germans here, right, and if we got let me put it down here. If we say, okay, I'm not defending with the squad here, the Germans could still go 11 to 7.5 or 11 to 8, which is going to be 1-to-1 -1, right? So he'll need a 6, and honestly, if he does that, what can actually happen beneficially for you if he goes 1-to-1 and then he 1-to-1 -1. So what's the 1-to-1 -1? We're looking at the close combat table. The 1-to-1 -1 gives us a 5 base, and the -1 gives us a makes it a 6 for a casualty reduction. So if he attacks both units and rolls a 6, what happens?
Well, he's still in melee.
Well, specifically what happens?
One of the units is randomly selected for casualty reduction.
Correct. One of the units is. So what does that actually do for the Americans? Is that something good for the Americans, or is it something negative for the Americans? Obviously, casualty reduction negative, but can we see a positive coming out of the Germans combining his attacks into making a 1-to-1 -1? Can we see something positive come out of that? What's the best thing that can happen for the Americans? Somebody gets casualty reduced. Is there a difference on who gets casualty reduced? Overall. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes. We'll go into both.
I'm going to guess that the best case would be the leader takes the wound as the casualty reduction in that case.
Why would be that? Why would that be better, Steve?
Well, because your squad would stay at full strength, and that 8-down-1 leader becomes a 7-0 leader, which isn't terrible. No positive modifiers.
Right. So, for all intents and purposes, Say that's his attack, right? And let's say he gets wounded. What's this unit? And say he doesn't kill, and that was his result for that melee. And let's say you don't.
1 FP. Yeah, he's still 1 FP.
Right, and say you didn't get a kill on him. Next round, he's still 1 FP. You didn't, essentially, for all intents and purposes, he missed on that shot because it didn't affect your firepower. You still have 8. Right, you still have 8. You still won't get the minus modifier, but that's kind of the thing with it. Now, if we separate them, let's see, he stacks the 9-1 with this guy down here. So a 6 got a casual reduction, which 50% of the time, well, slightly less than that, we'll still keep our leader because you have to re-roll for all that good stuff. Let me get the moves out of the way. So if we go 5-1 against the leader, what do we need to kill him? Like a bazillion, right? 5-1 is a 9. That's actually, I gotta be honest with you.
And if that leader was pinned, it'd be even more.
No, the defense is still gonna be the same.
Oh yes.
It's still going to be fine.
Right.
Make sure you don't forget that in your games. I know I've seen a lot of guys say, "Well, yeah, he's 5 for the." He's full of 1. Say he's full of 1 makes a big difference. So that's a 5-1. You say, "Oh my God, he's dead." Well, a 9 is a CR, and guess what happens with leaders when they CR? They roll. It's essentially he needs an 8 for a kill. So you guys have done close combat. You guys have rolled 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s all day long. I mean, we're all been there. So splitting him up, essentially, since he doesn't add anything to him in terms of offensive or defensive capabilities, you might want to bait his shot to bait this guy to attack him differently. So this guy has a better result. So now this attack on the bottom is going to be at 1-2 -1. So he'll need a 5 for a casual reduction instead of the 6, which is slightly worse. And if I've got my, I think, oh my God, all these things are popping out here. Where's my chart? Where is the dice probability? Right there. So a 6 is a 41% chance of casual reduction. A 5 is a 27% chance. It just went from 40 to 30% for all intents and purposes. So you just gain 10% survivability by splitting that up. Now, if it gets a CR, it will, of course, 100% apply to the 747, but it's less likely to occur. So this might be a viable strategic option for you to, instead of the default, I'm just going to stack with a guy. If it's end game, this might be something you might be looking for to do something like this. You can still combine your attacks later, but I'm just going to defend by myself to maybe bait him out, to maybe get him to attack this, or even the 9-1 on that guy to attack that. Now, what happens if the leader dies? Let's see, he's gone. What's the consequence to this unit? 8-1, gone.
He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to take a leader loss morale check in close combat.
In close combat, he's exempt from leader loss morale check or task check in that case, guys. So, still no penalty to the 747. That's a 10-3 leader. He just got zapped. No penalty. No penalty. If this guy was a 10-3 leader and he was pinned, you might want to do the same thing. And you damn well know he's going to split the attack then. You know he's going to split the attack then because the 10-3 leader is equivalent to this 8-1 unwounded. I don't think we can unwound. No, we can't unwound it. What? Clone? Oh, clone. Delete. Can we unwound? Yep. So if we had, just to accentuate the strangeness. Let's put this guy over here. If this is a 10-3 leader, late game, this is checkmate sort of situation, you might want to do exactly the same thing. He still only applies half firepower, no leadership modifier. He is equivalent to this unit here. This is a 1-1. Again, he could still attack them all as one unit. The choice is his. Or he could split one unit up here and throw his leader either way to try to make sure there. And again, going back to the GC table, 5-1 is only a 4-1, so it means a 9. Gets a 9, it's a CR, which means a 1 through 4, 66% of the time, we're still alive. So he's still, at that point, he'd be 10 minus 1? 10 minus 2, sorry? Wound? Yeah.
No, he'd be a 9 minus.
Yeah, 9 minus 2. Does a 9 minus 2 suck? Hell no. Hell no. So this is still a viable option. and something to think about, just in terms of mathematics, gentlemen, just in terms of math. It's not intuitive by any stretch of the imagination, but overall, it gives this guy a slightly higher capability of surviving. Now, if he hits a 1-to-1 and this guy CRs, right, then we're still looking only at 1-to-2. And at this point, let's say it goes another round, and let's say this guy gets eliminated. It goes another round. He's probably going to stack with that guy, and guess what? You now have a 3-to-1, and he still has a 1-to-1. He hasn't gained anything, while you have increased your odds of at least eliminating some units. And this is a 3-to-1, and a 3-to-1 is an 8. And guess what? When you roll an 8, that's a CR. It eliminates the unit, so that unit is gone.
Well, I can tell you the American didn't have to do any of those things. He ended up winning both of those melees before the game was over.
Wow, wow, that's crazy. So, did I don't know if I went off base on that one, but did that address sort of the question that was posed? So, again, when you're of course you've got 337s in there. That's also part of the equation, and again, that's something you might consider since he's pinned. I mean, does it impact if he stacks to the 747 or not? No, most likely. You know, if he wants to obliterate one of these guys, and if he gets a 2-to-1 on one of these guys, you know, I don't know. You might consider stacking this guy at least for the round 1 with like one of these guys if it makes a difference. You know, I don't because the 5-to-3 is a 3-to-2, so he can get a 3-to-2 and a 3-to-2 -1. Whereas if you stack your leader with one of them, he gets a 3-to-2 and a 1-to-1. Because if he ignores this guy, so therefore it also reduces his odds of at least committing a little bit more casuals on that one. Again, he could choose to attack whomever he wants to attack, but at least that makes the numbers more difficult for him. For me, I have a tendency, especially in SK, to go for the better kills, because you guys know how long close combat can last in starter kit. It can last quite some time, and this is in this particular game, it's very key in having non-good order units in melee. So you want to prolong those melees as long as possible for the Americans, and the Germans want to avoid the melees pretty much like the plague, because they're going to be a disadvantage straight up because of the 7 firepower factor. It's very difficult for them to be successful in the first or second round. It will take them time to kill the Americans, and time is what they do not have. By the time the Americans get in there and get down and dirty with it, they have the edge in close combat, especially when you've got, you know, Corporal Rainier back over here with his 9-2, and him just blasting these guys in close combat, or just, you know, blasting them adjacent and everyone breaking. So, yeah, stacking considerations. Just think about how the odds are. Again, not intuitive and throwing that leader by himself, but if this is turn 5, you know, he's probably going to have to attack everything anyway. So it doesn't, in this case, it probably doesn't matter too much. But if it's turn 4, you know, or beginning, let's see, the Axis move last. So you might want to remember the leader. Let's say he kills everybody else in there, and that's the end of the game. He kills everyone but the leader. And if the leader's in there in melee with these guys over here, you know, they're still in melee. These are still not good order units, so the leader can you know, bring home the victory in that case. But of course, you know, again, the German gets to attack whoever he wants to attack, and if the defense doesn't add anything to you, you might consider baiting him. It's just like, you know, when you guys have 337s, right? You got a 337 right here, and you got this stack of units, and he's got these units over here that are unbroken. Let me see. You know, he's got these guys right here, right? And you need to get, let's say, you need to get to N6, and this leader's like over here. Let me just hit him, and they need to get over here. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to try and bait him with 337, right? To get these guys to fire. Same sort of thing. You want to bait his decision. You want to make him to make a decision he doesn't want to make. And then you take, once all these guys first fire, assuming they do, well, there's 3 of them, he probably won't. but then you run this guy behind him and it's safe and clear. So you sacrifice one unit to allow the other unit to perform his action, and that's just part of the game. You may have to sacrifice your 8-1. Do you want to do it? Not really, but can you afford to lose him? Yeah. Guess what? 8-1 here. Even if this was like turn 4, late turn 3, and if this were the situation, it's not going to be, but obviously, if this is what you're looking at, you still have a leader here, leader here, leader here. You've got plenty of leadership around. Losing one leader is not going to do anything to you in this situation. Down the road, if you had to do other things, it might. But if it gives you a short advantage in the immediacy of close combat, you might consider it. Again, if this guy dies, you might want to throw your 9-2 in there, and guess what's going to happen next turn? Those guys are going to vaporize. Hopefully those guys will vaporize. But again, that's very risky. I mean, very strong, very risky. At that point, the 9-2 will take all the attention away from everybody else. Everybody else. If you need these 3/3/7s to survive, throw your 9-2 in there and stack it with the 7-4-7. He's attacking this unit. These guys are going to be left alone. You have to attack the 9-2 to kill him. You're just not going to survive close combat in any extended period of time in the game. So essentially what you're doing is you're risking the 9-2 in that case to save the 3/3/7s. Of course, he's an offensive weapon, albeit, but we all see those 2s and 3s and 4s coming in close combat, and you're losing close shots. So, but yeah, good question. That actually hasn't come up in a lot of my games recently, to be honest with you. So that's a good question. I had to do some soul searching on that one. So
yeah, so I've got another item that I wanted to bring up, completely unrelated to this, but right. So let me bring up. Yeah, everybody can close that. Okay. So I was playing Simple Equation, and I've got the log file in. Go ahead and sync.
Okay, cool.
I think this is the correct first one.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so I'll just kind of go quickly through. I was playing the defender.
Okay.
And actually, let me so everybody can see. I'll show the fortified buildings there. Unhip those. Okay. So the American player, relatively new at I can't remember. This was Rich. He's a quick learner. Is starting to quickly passing me in skill. So let me. I'll just kind of quickly go with his action here, and so he did a couple prep fires and it actually worked out. He broke one of the squads. Then he went right to movement. He was anxious to get the German heavy machine, so he moved in there.
One quick question. When did he roll his 10 on his flamethrower?
Oh, the first time he shot it.
No way. Good Lord.
So,
That's...
I think he got his flamethrower. I think it was here. And, at the end of his turn. So on his defensive fire, I think he fired there.
No, that's crazy.
And he rolled an 11. So, yeah. Which I think just about everybody has that same, if I get 2 shots of a flamethrower, I'm dancing around saying I've succeeded.
Mm.
So we'll keep kind of going here. So he's moving some squads down, trying to take some shots. And I'm going to do this relatively quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
Kind of just to show where he ends up. He brings these guys in right up front, and he finally breaks with my subsequent fire. I fired from there.
Yeah, you had loaded on these guys. Wow.
He was, yeah, and he was surviving all the way down, and then it was a 2-up-1 shot that actually got him.
Oh my God.
So now he's using smoke, and he's advancing over here on the weak side, and so he gets some result. He got a KIA out of that.
Now pause for 1 second. On the KAA? What did you forget?
Oh, the residual.
What did he? Was he first? Was he first fire? Was that a subsequent first fire shot?
It must have been, yes.
Okay, and okay, if the subsequent first fire wouldn't have left that in residual. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's so. At this point, we were talking. He was going. I think he started with. He had this guy here, and I think he assault moved there, and we started having a discussion. It's like, well, you know, everybody's fired here. You should come down here. So with a little discussion, had him come down.
Yeah, some nudging. Yeah, absolutely.
Got himself there, and that was the end of. Let's see. I think I did. We'll finish here. So I had final fire there, and I think that's the end of. He advanced fires. What little bit he had left. I don't think there was any results from that. Yeah, broke another squad. So he ended up there, and we started talking about, well, you know, how'd you end up? And I was sort of kind of telling him, like, well, you know, if it had been me, I don't think I would have prep fired right from the very beginning. You know, I would have moved squads closer first and then outside. You know, so I was kind of being a little critical and thinking, you know, there's got to be a better way, right? Thinking, even though he ended up pretty strong here, and just so everybody knows, in the end, he ended up not winning.
Okay.
He ended up not winning. His whole assault collapsed. So let me now close this, and we'll load another one. And so what I tried doing is thinking, you know, first I tried doing it against myself. You know, is there a better way to assault? And of course, when you know how someone's gonna defend, you, you can't play very well. So I think this is the one I tried against Scott. So go ahead and sync.
Oops. Okay.
Okay.
Same defense?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the exact same position basically you're looking at. Or are we not looking at?
Yeah, it's the same. Craig just asked me to sit in as the defender and so he could try an offense against
Yeah. So my idea was, you know, I was going to try to be a little aggressive, try to put smoke on there, and of course I've played Scott a few times, so he knows what few tricks I've got in my bag. So here I go there. I'm going to try to lay smoke. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. This is the one that I'm playing against myself. You know, and I'm holding fire because I know what I'm going to do. And got that smoke on there. And in the end, the result was probably worse than where Rich ended up when he was going against me. I'll keep fast forwarding here. Yeah. So that's about where we are at the end of the advanced fire phase. So didn't end up quite as good. So let's go ahead and close this.
Hold on, pause for a second here.
Yep.
Why do you think, define what do you mean by didn't end up as good?
Well, I guess, you know, the in particular, the right side, when he was done, I mean, there was nothing over here.
Okay.
Those squads were broken. And I'm pretty sure after route phase, it would have been eliminated. Maybe one guy would have gotten away. I can't remember exactly. You know, we're already in turn 3 here. Not a whole lot of turns left for the Americans to still, you know, get past this tree line and start capturing buildings.
Right.
And it doesn't have very much strength here on the German left. The German left, you know, still pretty solid.
Okay. So
So I thought at best I could say that it's kind of, you know, maybe it's the same as where he had ended up. Didn't end up any better by me thinking that I was going to play it better.
Right. So let's say Germans fire next turn, like nothing happens. You route your guys normally, and then oh, your leader's pinned, so you're kind of screwed there. Oh, wow, that's kind of screwed. So what would be your plan for these guys over here on the left hand side with the HMG? Based on these guys would have to this guy would be, maybe he could be able to go back here. He'd probably well, you'd advance. He'd probably go here. These guys, I don't think they can go there. He'd have to go there, and the 8-0 can come over. Oh, yeah, there's just a bunch of broken guys. So that essentially, this is just a cluster up here. What now, essentially, you just have these guys right now. This guy can do nothing. He could jump in close combat. That's about all he could do. Actually, yeah, close combat gets out probably the best.
Pretty risky 1-2, and
yeah, I'd probably go close combat against him. Simply because why would I go into no? Tell me why I would go into close combat against him versus him or him.
Would have thought about the conscript because at least you got an advantage in the ambush.
Okay.
But second line squad. I guess going into if you end up in melee, then he can't. Then he can't at least fire on these guys over here. And you can
right. So essentially, that only gives him one unit to be able to. Well, I don't even think he could see this hex. So it's going to weaken this side in terms of defensive fire, which is, partially why some of these guys got blasted by this unit. But yeah, so that one's blocked. So what are these guys going to be doing in defensive fire if this unit stays there? They're probably going to blast him, right?
Yeah.
So he has to move. So what target do these guys have then?
So I'd be shooting over here.
Right. So you're putting pressure on his central hub over here. With an HMG as well, mind you. Of course, it's +3. Yeah, you get something, but that's 18 fire. That's 19 firepower. He's going to be interested in that. And let's see, this over here. That's not going to have a lot of firepower on him there. So you still have offensive capabilities right here.
But I gotta say, the reason that I ended up in this position is I was playing against myself, and so let's just go ahead and close this game.
Okay.
And let me load the one that I did against Scott. He's a better defender against me than I am because I think I gave myself a little too much credit here. This might be it. Okay. All right, everybody ready?
Is there one broken unit over here?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And the lone HMG over here again?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
In the exact same place.
All right.
All right. So, so I advanced there, and of course Scott can't turn down an 8-1 shot, and leaves 4 residual, and pretty sure he breaks and ELRs. So then, we'll move on here, and he takes shots. I try advancing. Again, I'm going to do this quickly. So this is probably a more realistic defense based on what I was trying to do. Still on defensive fire. Go through here. And there we go. So this is where we ended up when I went against Scott. So kind of about the same place. Nowhere near further along than I sort of thought the Americans should be after Rich and I played the one turn.
Okay.
And I was kind of looking at it and wondering, well, why is this not going the way I initially thought it should have? And then it sort of occurred to me that really the error wasn't Rich's attack on turn 3. It was really his initial setup, I think, on turn 1 and 2. You'll notice his advance was pretty much across the whole front.
Right.
He didn't really have a strong concentration of squads on either one side or the other or in the middle, something like that. So when it ended up, he had made some good progress here, but he didn't have anything to follow up with it. And the same way with me, it's like, yeah, I had those 2 squads there, but probably didn't have enough to follow up to press the advance. So, so now that analyzing it 3-4 times, I'm sort of thinking, well, it was at that point by turn 3, there was probably very little the Americans could have done to win this scenario based on where he got himself right there at turn 3 without the concentration of force. So, and I haven't had time to go back and try to play the scenario doing that, concentrating the Americans on one side or the other.
Right. So, in terms of assault, simply because you lost your flamethrower, and that essentially the bunker buster, fortified building location, nullifiers, the equalizer. That's going to clear out a unit, or at least threaten to clear out units that are in proximity to that weapon's range. Obviously, right? Obviously, it's about. Now, did he use it against a conscript, or did you guys use it against a conscript?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
If the flame was here. Or here.
Right. Again, because of the lifespan of the flamethrower, you might it depends on the situation. Simply because the Americans have a shitload of firepower, using a flamethrower against a very weak unit anyway might not be your best choice of targets. I would always look to try to at least vaporize leaders to keep them down, because your range is really good. Let's say if it rolls a 10 on the leader anyway, it's irrelevant, but the flamethrower is gone. So
Pretty
that
sure he'd to that hex. And
right. So when the flamethrower essentially cracks, what becomes your secondary building clearing weapon?
Say your medium machine gun, 9-2 leader.
9-2 leader, right. This guy with 16 firepower will clear out any building every single turn. Every single turn he clears the building out. He sits and fires, sits, long range fire, sits, +4, sits, or +2. This is actually -1. This is 16 -1 against that guy. So he is essentially creating cracks in the German defense, where the Americans can take advantage of that. And that's kind of where you need to be right at this point, is to try to crack some of his units, sort of like your opponent. All these guys broke over here, and you said, hey, there's a crack in his defense, send your guy behind them. You cracked him. So now take advantage of that crack and open up that egg and just slurp that sucker right on out. And so that's kind of what you're doing here. Now tell me about your units moving over here without smoke.
Well, the intent was to smoke, especially this guy. He assault moved there, and the idea was to place smoke there.
Okay.
So that the smoke would affect both these guys shooting over in this direction.
Okay. Oh, and this guy was advanced, right? So
yeah.
But
that involved, you've got this 447 getting point blank fire with a -1.
Right.
Which, Scott, who's going to turn down an 8-1 shot?
Okay.
And in a sense, I was like, well, that's fine. If he takes that 8-1 shot, he's got the first fire. Well, and this guy's adjacent, so that's it. He doesn't have any more shots.
Right.
And then
right.
I think I brought, if I remember correctly, I can't remember, one of these guys was going to try to lay smoke here or here or something like that in order to help provide cover from there.
Right.
But the roll failed. So
okay.
Even I'd have to go back and kind of see. But
right. Restart this log and we'll go over this. Restart the log from this point, and we'll just look at this side right here, and we'll take a look at what we can look at. Because I saw a unit here, and it's like, okay, I don't know where this unit end up. The 666 end up. I'm not sure where he ended up. He may be this unit here. But let's back it up just for quick. Remember, all these guys are just smoke hogs and firepower dogs. One thing I see over here is if you're assault moving right here. Tell me what you see. You're in the trees, right?
Yeah, I'm right now. I'm looking for the file. Hold on.
Okay, no worries.
Maybe somebody else can answer. And I'm gonna send you the file.
Okay.
And because I got to go.
Okay, no worries.
Stu, this is interesting to look at this. Like when I was talking to Craig about this, aside from kind of the diffuseness of the American attack, I also thought that Craig is usually really good about using smoke, but I think my take was that I thought he actually overdid it on this side and was trying to go he had too much ground to cover to be using the amount of smoke he was going for, because you're still putting guys, if you're gonna get guys out here to put smoke down, they're still going to be taking shots and taking fire, and then or you can just wait till the smoke goes away. So it seems to me that this is a little too much open ground to cover putting down a lot of smoke here. I think obviously it would be super useful, but
right. Let's
see what you think about that.
Let's pop the file. Let's see. Where did you put that file, Craig? Let's see. Oops, I'm in the wrong section here. Craig, did you put the file in the Tactical Tuesdays questions or the log files? Oh, is that's which game was that for you guys? Because I actually have the log file. So.
Yeah, I don't have it either. We just did it. It was just a quickie. We just did it before a different game that we were playing.
Oh, okay. So
we didn't actually play the full game. I just played this like half a turn with him.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that I get it done right. Actually, I hate to reverse it all. Was this game? Oh my gosh. Let's see. Craig. Nope. Okay, so I don't know. Craig's got the file. Hopefully. Oh, darn it! I'm not in the room. There, right there. Craig, are you sending me the file in email, or are you posting it here on the site?
I think he said he had to go. He sometimes gets a call if he's at work.
Oh yeah, no big deal. I thought they had sent the file. All right, so
he has an important job, so he can't skip the call.
Yeah, no worries. I'm on call sometimes too, like that. So let's back up. Let's cut the board in half. We're gonna cut the board in half. So I don't want to misconstrue his actions. I wish. I think I do have the log file. Do you recall? Since the defense is the same, do you recall who he was playing against? I could pull up the file. I have the file.
I think he was playing Richard Matheson.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely have that then. Scott.
I know he's been wanting to talk about this for a while, so I think.
My bad.
He might have sent it to you a while ago. Craig.
Oh no, this is S3. Sorry, I don't have the S3. I have his S8 file. But let me see if there's an S3 file in the thing. Now these are all S8s. Shoot. All right. So let me see if I can back this up. I hate having to click this 1,000 times. As a matter of fact, it has a tendency to not back up after a certain while, and it's not. So, this guy here. Do you guys recall where he was located before he got shot and broken?
No, I mean most of those guys came from.
Okay, let's just back them up in the woods. Let's just back them up in the woods. All right, we're gonna assume the 9-1's here. This is what I'm going to assume what the deal is.
Yeah, it's something like that.
And I remember, let's say this guy here is this guy. This guy was broken underneath this 8-0. I do recall that. I think this unit was here.
Yeah, I think he was at least.
Oh wow, yeah, his squad. Yeah, he got all screwed up, didn't he?
Yeah. But the funny thing is, the first move we did this, he's like, all right, I want to try this out. So first thing he does is he moves this guy here, and I was like, all right, he's gonna try for smoke. I'll take the shot, and I got a 3. So Craig was like, let's start. Can we start that over? He's like, I don't think that's a good example.
Yeah. Okay. Since how many movement factors did it take this guy? Was he back here? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I know this guy eventually got into here.
Okay. All right. So let's put him here, and then we'll start from the left over here, and then we'll make our way. So this unit is looking at which threat? He's looking at the 447. Will a 447 fire? I don't know. That's a defensive choice. That's about the only unit that can fire on him. The 8-1 might be able to see this spot right here. This looks pretty clear to me from the 8-1. So that looks like an LMG shot to keep him from his HMG. LMG maybe even with the 8-1 leader, because all the stuff's -1 out in the open, right? So let's say he makes it there. So if he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, he can't pick up the HMG. But if he starts here and he goes 1, 2, 3, he could expend 1 to pick up the HMG. Again, I'm not sure how many movement factors it took him there.
Yeah,
but
I think he was pretty close to it.
Yeah, I think he was. I don't know how far it was, but just remember when you're going for the HMG, you guys can always recover during your movement phase. Can you fire that weapon in the advanced fire phase? Is the question.
Yes, because it didn't move.
Because the weapon didn't move. Correct. What's the firepower of that weapon in the advanced fire phase?
Half.
Half. Yeah, it's always half in the advanced fire phase. So yeah, that's where we are there. So he's there. That didn't change in any of the situations that he showed. Right. Now, taking the situation over here, let's say that these guys are set up right here. I don't know if the 337 was there or not, but I'm going to ignore the 337 for the purposes of this discussion. He wants to go here, drop smoke on him to cover these guys coming this way. Perfectly fine idea. Okay. Did he move the 9-2 and 666 in this situation?
I don't remember.
I
think he did eventually, but
did he prep him?
I don't think he prepped anyone.
Okay, so nobody preps on the board. Keep that in mind. So, given that situation, we have a squad here with a leader. We have the big boy, which is pressure, and then we have some guys in the back. Don't know if he was a 5-4-6. He might be a 5. Let's just keep him as a 5-4-6. Irrelevant. This guy wants to get here to drop smoke on here. That's the prime objective. Can this guy do that more safely than assault moving here? 8-1. Remember, what's the difference between that unit and let's say this unit moving into that hex? Assault moving. Tell me the biggest difference.
Well, to morale.
To morale. That's what we're looking at. If this is an 8 morale unit, and if there's nobody else supporting him, he can make that move most of the time. Because an 8-1 is going to yield what on the average dice roll of 7?
1 check.
1 check. He'll need to roll a 7 or less to be pinned, etc. He doesn't want to be pinned, but he won't be broken. This unit will, if he moves there, what will he need to be pinned? A 5.
5, yeah.
He's going to get the same result. It's going to be a 5. Big difference in units. So therefore, you must treat them differently. Now on the backside, right? Same 8 morale. They're equivalent on the backside. So, but since their front is different, you have to. This is glass. This is badass. So I'm not saying so for him to get there safely, let's say he was planning this guy to go over here, right? Maybe dropping smoke, maybe doing something else. And he's got a couple other guys doing stuff too as well. So, and this guy ended up not moving. So if he's not going to move, or let's say he wants to move, what can he do to, let's say this guy wants to go over to this position. Right, and again, if this guy moves up, he can also. Now, next question: does this unit need to enter this fortified building location to obtain the HMG in the beginning of next turn? Does he need to enter it in the movement phase?
No.
Okay, so what can he do?
Recover in the rally.
Right, so he can go first of all, he can go 1, 2. He probably doesn't want to go 3, but let's say he can go 1, 2, and then what can he do over here?
You put smoke down there.
He could drop some smoke right there. What does this do? It helps this avoid this, because this guy can't see him. Now this guy has a hindrance here, and it goes right down that line. Let me get the arrow, because the arrow is actually very. Oh, not with it. Here's LOS. No. Okay, so get rid of this guy. So if this guy moved here and here, what's that firepower? What's the effect of this of this smoke here?
4+1 now.
Yeah. Actually, what is it?
4+2. 4+2. Yeah, because of the
Yeah, he's hitting this, and he's hitting that because they're inherent hindrances. Instead of being 4 even, now it's 4+2. Is his survival rate go up by like about 30%? It sure did. Remember, 6 morale, 8 morale. You could probably just move him there and just take the hindrance and be at 4 even. 6 morale, you want as much smoke as possible. So that's kind of what we're looking at here again. And this is a 5-4-6. Is this LOS clear? Right? Is that clear? You can clear the map. Tell me if that's a clear line of sight or not. Where is it going to intersect? It's going to intersect here. So therefore, it will clip that building there. He's out of line of sight of the big boy. So let's say we take this unit here. And then let's say we drop even more smoke here. Attempt another smoke placement. 6, he's done. 1, 2, he's done. Okay, no big deal. This unit, if this unit wants to move this way, we could do a number of things. This unit here can go. He probably left the leader here for what? The leader didn't move. Why?
what, to rally?
To rally. Can he move and still rally that unit? Can he leave that hex and then still rally that unit next rally phase?
Well, I mean, as long as he's 1 hex away, he can advance back in there.
Right, right. So we are here. This unit has, if they move together, essentially giving 6 MF, because you could think of a number of situations that might be occurring around here. Move him here. A, it does 2 things. 1, it gives this unit 6 MF, right? To do things that he wants to do. And also, it gives us flexibility in our attack or defense. Let's say this unit says, oh, there's a leader. I like to shoot at leaders. I need to break leaders. Because some people have a tendency to just target leaders, which is fine. So in this case, he might be baited with multiple shots because you're non-assault moving. He might be baited with a shot. And so he actually might draw fire. I'm going to say he doesn't, but he might draw fire. If it's the difference between a 0% chance of him drawing fire and a 20% chance of him drawing fire, there's an increased chance that the defender may choose 1 out of every 5 games that he's going to draw fire. If he draws fire, what does that do for our side? It really opens up that side of the map, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But that just goes in. Let's say he doesn't fire. So what is he going to do? He's dropping smoke right here. Doesn't get it. Big deal. At that point, he can either continue moving, again, to draw fire, or be done with it and stick. Guess what? Stay on top of the 9-2, and then this unit could simply just move back over here. Or he could advance back over that. I wouldn't put 2 leaders in 1 hex for any more than like 1 second. And then he just either moves back there or advances back there in the advance phase. So as long as he stays within 1 hex, like Mark was saying, he just advances back in there, and this guy's fine and dandy. You don't have to babysit him, because sometimes other opportunities. So this guy's done moving. So now we've got, this guy hasn't moved yet.
Sorry, Stu. I gotta take off for dinner. But I'll catch you next time.
Hey, no worries, Scott. No worries. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for this. Take care.
Sure. And so so we've got our 9-2 and these guys here that want to smoke this unit again for possible movements over on this side. So this guy failed his movement, and he's done moving. He dropped the smoke. He's done moving. These guys need to move. If this guy's not going to, if this guy wants to move, guess what? Try it in the smoke placement here. 6 movement factors. right? So that's 2, and then he can either go. I mean, pretty much he's free to move wherever he wants. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3. He could fire at him. That's probably going to draw fire. 4, we know that's blocked. 5, 6. Let's assume he wants to move over there for whatever reason. Now we have our smoke screen there. This guy can now move assault. He won't be able to assault move, but he can go 2, which is actually better than the initial assault move. Why is that? What modifiers are we getting in here when we're moving directly? Remember, he assault moved. This is very similar to that route problem that we had last week. In better terrain, if he assaults move in the open, assault move's a safer move. What's the modifier?
Oh, -1.
-1.
Yeah.
All right, smoke in there. Non-assault movement. What's the modifier?
+1.
+1. So it's a less safe movement option, but yet because the smoke is there, he has a better defensive posture. What does that allow us to do with the 666 since he moved in there? It allows him to place 2 more movement factors and try to smoke that guy. All right, so there's smoke, and now this smoke affects this fire over here. Where did this guy end up? Where is this guy? I have no clue where that guy is. Oh, he was right here, I think. Yeah, and so we've got smoke laying all over the place. Now this guy has a choice of whatever he wants to do. He can support the fire. He could actually move here. Actually, the 436. This is then where you might want to bait this shot out with a 337 from here and or here, right? That somebody's going to fire on this guy, and if the 436 fires on this guy can move over here because he won't get fired on. I mean, that's a dangerous situation. That's very dangerous here because this guy's smoked. He's not going to be able to do something like that. But in defensive fire, these are going to drop, and now he's going to. If he doesn't fire, he has targets of opportunity, and that's still going to be damaging for the Americans. So, but in terms of at least getting those units there so they're not broken, that is one option that you have of getting them there when they're not broken. He's still out in the open. Is this kind of what we want in this situation? I would much prefer. You're less safe out here than you are right here, creating a fire group to break somebody over here. Pretty much the lead you want to break. But if you could crack this, right? If you crack this first, let's say the 337's right over here. If you crack this guy, the 337 can then just CX, just so he can avoid this guy's firepower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he does get shot at by him. He might get shot at by him. Maybe, maybe not. But if this guy's is broken, right? He has to leave. Actually, he can't even route that way. He has to go back this way. He'll have to look around. Why can't he route this way? Well, these guys are actually out of LOS when they move. So let's say he could just route that way. Then this guy can occupy that location. Now we could start funneling some units into that location and start essentially starting to crack the egg. Now, so this is much safer an endpoint than this. Is it a slightly turn later? Yeah, but if these guys are stuck out in the open like this, they break. Both these units break. And you say, well, that's going to delay me getting to the building. If both these units break and route back here, you have one unit. Is he ever going to take that building? He's not even going to scratch it. So essentially, keeping what's the American advantage in this game? It's not morale. They do not have the advantage of morale in this game. It's range and firepower.
Yep.
Use range and firepower to your advantage. And that comes into play over here. So that's one way of assaulting it. There's probably 10 different other ways. Do you want your 9-2 over here? Probably not. You probably want him in that central position blasting these guys. Or blasting them, a couple guys over here. He might be over here and he could blast that guy in the back or whatever you want to, whatever you think it might be wanting to do with the 9-2. he's a tough nut. Again, if you get guys over here like this unit over here, and you think he had another guy that made it to that position, and he's got the HMG, this guy's not staying there. He's leaving. So you kind of open up this side over here. Do you still have to drop smoke when you move? You better damn well you should. You need to drop. First of all, he needs to advance in here if he can, and then you drop smoke, and then you do the other guy, and then move here, and then so on and so forth. But he has to move from that location, and that's what you want. You essentially, like when you try to break somebody, you want to dislodge him from the location. You can still dislodge him from the location by shoving 20 firepowers in his face or 18 firepower in his face. That's going to make me move, because does he have any leaders over here?
No.
No.
Right. So he's gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy breaks. He's done. He doesn't have any. All of his leaders are here and over. This guy breaks. He's out of the game. So he has to move. Is this a good spot? Yeah, it's better for the Americans, because if the Americans can make it here, that's 8+3. Much better than this, right? Yeah. So if you force him to move, then next turn again, firepower here, break a guy, force him to move. Get a foothold there. If this guy stays here and fires on him, at the end of the turn, let's say that 337 gets over here and makes him route. Where are you going to put your 9-2 in this case? He's moving here, and this squad, the good order squad that was in here, actually the good order squad moved over there. But if this good order squad fired force, he might move here instead, because you don't want to overstack. Well, you can't overstack. So in that case, the 8-0 doesn't even have to stay there. The 8-0 can move over here and give these guys a leader rally capability to prevent what the Germans have set up over here is no rally capability. You have a rally here, you have a leader here, leader here, leader here. You need support everywhere. If these guys break over in the open, they're sunk. They're out of the game. You need the leader to be able to stay there and rally with those units. Are they safe here broken? Yes. Why? Because you have this unit firing 6 hexes if the Germans want to get smart and do this. You've got a couple squads that will be in the area that's protecting these guys. If these guys break, they don't ever have to route anywhere, because the 6-1, 6-2 is going to shred those units, most likely. And if not, then they just, at that point, you just got to low crawl back, but probably they won't break. So, crack the egg, squeeze somebody into the egg, force this guy to make a decision. This guy's broken, he'll have to route. So 2, 4, probably route back. Does the leader go with him? Don't know. It's up. In this case, since there's no other leader, since he doesn't have a smaller leader, if this 8-0 was over here, he might stay there. If he's not, and the HMG's over here with 16 firepower +1, guess what's going to happen to this guy next turn? He's going to be fried. If he takes this shot, again, give bait. It's sort of like the leader separate from your squad. Bait him out. Give him this 12+2 shot. If he breaks, does that do anything to the Americans' attack? It does nothing. It does nothing. And what can happen the turn after? What could, let's say we still need to move across this. What can happen since we have our foothold? Omaha Beach, we've got some guys on the beach. We've got a foothold. This guy can then move here, drop smoke just exactly like he was planning to do anyway. But now you're smoking the different target, which is much more valuable. Where's my smoke? There it is. This guy gets smoked. Now these guys, this guy might be broken by some general. Essentially, when these guys move in the open over here, some of those guys are firing at that unit to break him, because then he can't route this way, because that's routing near where your 337 is. Do you see what your 337 does? It prevents that route. It forces this action, and guess what? He's got a low crawl, because he ain't passing that morale check any day of the week. And so what happens when you low crawls in the open, when the Americans are right here, when it comes to German fire phase, this is going to be a defensive fire action. You're going to have a 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 3 or whatever. If all these guys run away, he's dead. If he breaks, he dies. He's not. Well, in this case, you would take interdiction, in my opinion, because If you stay here, you're going to be a half squad anyway, and if he fires 2 shots, you'll be eliminated. If you go here and you fail, you're a half squad, but then you make it back here. At least you're a half squad, and you're back. You know, you might be able to block movement avenues. At that point, you take interdiction. So we've managed a foothold here, and then we can move next turn. He has 4 more movement turns to do that. Obviously, you got to start busting ass, but that's fine. Once you crack through, it's just a matter of CXing units at that point. And you need leaders to be able to go even further. So leaders in certain areas where you're going to crack through his defense is very important, because then you penetrate down deep behind his lines or wherever you want to go, or just cut him off. So let's look at this side over here. So let's assume this side has no impact on this side. This side will have much more impact in the center than it will over here. But this 8-1 has a great impact over the entire map, because he could fire the entire way. This is a key position right here. So tell me the difference between this position and this position against these Germans. Tell me the difference. It's very similar to the way when I put all my
conscripts are full fire, full fire.
Right. Now this guy's full firepower against 3 units. That's going to be a 4 even shot. Remember, does your firepower change if it's here versus here?
Not at all. Nope.
Does your defense change if you're here versus there?
You're certainly a little harder to break in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, he's going to be half firepower. So it drops it down. Essentially, it's a plus. Instead of being a 4 even right here, if you drop back, it's going to be a 2+1. So essentially, that's a modifier of +2, because the 4 is 1 chart higher, essentially giving you a much better chance of damaging someone. But if you're reducing the chart and adding a modifier on top of it, you're keeping your defense. These units are much, much safer up here. Now, the same thing over here. This guy only has 1 target to fire at. If they all move up, he has 2 potential targets. He could actually fire on this unit to break up the fire group. This unit can fire on this unit to break up a fire group, if he wants to fire. Assuming he wants to fire. I probably wouldn't, but that's an option the German has. I mean, it's simple as that. With these many units over here, that's a tough decision to make. That's very tough, because they're conscript. They break, you're gone. But also this unit here can fire long range over here. 6+3 is not going to touch this unit. Not going to make a difference. 2+0, you might get lucky. 2+0, 2+0, 2 shots. This guy's got 4 or 2. This unit has 4 and 4. You've actually increased his offensive capabilities a lot. Let's say we get lucky and we break this unit here. Let's say this guy, just pins this guy, whatever, for whatever reason. So what can happen there is, you may or may not want to do this. You might want to assault move this guy up here with no leader. Now this unit can advance fire. Where can he advance fire?
He's a 447. He can reach anybody.
Right. He could fire. Are we going to fire everything together?
You don't even really have to. Well, I mean, it's in the open. You might just decide, hey, I'll take a 2 even and a 1 even somewhere.
That's exactly what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. You're not going to fire them together. You take a 1 even shot, which is pretty much a free shot.
An advancing fire, right? Because it doesn't make any difference.
Right. You got a 2 even and a 1 even shot against 6 morale units. If you get a morale check, most likely you're going to break him. Your chance of getting a morale check on the 2 chart is the same chance of him not being, almost the same chance of him not being pinned or broken. So the 2 even is very key. It doesn't look like much, but again, 6 morale. 6 morale is not that strong. You want to keep good defense. That's why when you drop smoke like we did in the center, that's increasing, for all intents and purposes, that's increasing our morale by adding modifiers to his attack. Now, essentially what that does to the German is pretty much it forces him to have to wait for the smoke to dissipate to fire on you. And then you want to make sure you're not in the open. And that's sort of the situation that we covered here. Is you really kind of, even though you drop smoke, now you're in the open. Now he just blasts you. He waits, and then he just blasts you at point blank. 8 even, you're gonna break. 6 - 1, you're gonna break. And so you're still in the same situation of not even dropping smoke at all. You want to be able to crack the egg to get into that egg to get some of that juiciness out of it. You don't want to just knock on the door and wait for them to unlock it. So and they're not going to. So that's kind of what we're looking at over here. You want to crack him again. Again, use what's your advantage? Range and firepower. We've got a 12, 12, and 12. We have 3 12 plus 3 shots. Right? So let's go. If this guy goes right here, fires gun. We've got a 12 plus 3 on him. We've got a 12 plus 3 on him. And these guys, if he breaks and he breaks, these guys move. Because guess what happens? Do you care about this guy? 1 in 6 times he's going to double cower. 1 in 6 times he's going to double cower. So you could actually approach that unit behind the grain. Right? If this guy's broken with a 12 plus 3. You need a 6, but again, if you get a morale check, it's the same thing as you getting a morale check on your units. You're just as vulnerable to breaking. The difference being is on the back side of the counter. Nationality distinctions. 5 morale, never going to rally. 8 morale, you've got a good chance of rallying. Not going to rally. So if you both break, you're coming up far sooner than him. So you can actually bounce back and destroy him. That's what the Americans are good at. And nobody else has a 2 increase on their backside of the morale. Nobody. So use that to your advantage. Can you smoke here and here? Yeah, you could probably smoke there and there. Like if you had another leader, do whatever, like something so crazy. But and then you want to move, again, you want to move your leader here, either on this side, like Craig pointed out, move him here for next turn's options, right? If you break this guy and this guy's over here, right? Let's say you end up right here. Let's say this guy fires and he pins one guy and the other guy gets scared. He says, I'm just going to move right there, just force this guy to route. So this guy routes back here. This guy probably routes back here. Let's just say this guy was pinned. Let's not even break him. Let's give the German the benefit of the doubt. So he's still got firepower. We don't want to be an easy situation. So we got this situation here. And again, these units, if bored, if other 12 firepower, I would fire 12 firepower from over here. Over here, and then maybe, depending on this, what you're going to do over here, fire these guys here or these guys here. And again, the 8 - 1 can shoot in this direction. You have to be wary of that. At that point, you might want to go 1, 2. That's probably going to be an else. He probably wants to go 1, drop smoke in front of him. Actually, I wouldn't move the 9 - 1. I'd move the crony next to him. 1, 2, 3. I'm getting lucky on my smokes, aren't I? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Then he goes 1, 2, 3. Let's say he just goes 4, because that's still going to clip it. Still got the hindrance here from this unit. Still got the hindrance here from this unit. This unit is out of range to there, so that's going to be a 4 - 1 in the defensive fire phase. Does this unit at that point, if this is your plan, do you want to occupy this guy's attention? Yeah. This will occupy my attention. Are you firing at this guy or are you firing at this guy in defensive fire phase? I don't know. It's tight. If this guy breaks and these guys broken, I might pop him. But that's a tough choice to make. This guy's got good defense, good leadership. This guy's got -1. That's a tough choice. And if you get these guys here, again, make him make a difficult decision. If this is the only target he has and these guys are just over here, the 9 - 1's like over here out of line of sight, who's he going to fire at?
Yeah.
There's only one target for him to fire at. He's not going to fire at these guys. The hell with this shit. They're in stone buildings. You got something like this, or if you bait him, or if you need this guy over here 100% more than you need this guy over here, this guy moves forward, right? And let's say you have a 666 here. Let's say the 337 breaks over here or some shit, whatever. Let's say you got another guy broken here, right? So who's he going to fire at then? Him. Is he going to kill him? Is this guy going to die? normally in a 6-1 shot. Can he die? Yes, he'd have to roll a 3. Well, if he has to roll a 3 to win the game, then he's going to roll a 3 to win the game. You can't rely on the 3s to win the game. He's taking this shot. But if this... See, when we're looking at here, how long are we going to take to get through this location here? Let's say these guys rally up next. This guy rally. You got a guy here. He's going to say he's going to self-rally. And this guy, let's say this guy here, routes back again. And let's say he self-rallies, 2 turns down the lane. We're looking at 2 turns down the lane. So how long is it going to take Mr. 9-2 and his entourage of 3 or 4 units when a couple of them are broken? This is good over here. And you got this unit over here too. Well, this is how we're looking at. We send our 8-0 over here with our... This is strong. This is very strong. This is pressure. When I see this as the Germans, I probably shit my pants and say, oh, I don't have a leader over there. And if I do this, he just does this and starts trying to destroy me. And that's bad. So I have to react to that. So these guys are probably going to go over here. Now, how long is it going to take this 9-2 to get to these buildings? Probably...
turns, yeah.
Yeah, probably the rest of the game. Probably the rest of the game. Yeah. So...
You might take might crack into the fortified building. That might be as far as you get. Right.
So he's probably not going to get any further than these buildings. So he's probably going to end up maybe collecting up 5 victory point locations. But this guy over here, if he can crack the egg on this side, right? Yeah, smoke it. He's got 4 units. And and remember, you got this 8-0. He's getting, let's say these guys break 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 advance. You tell me this guy is more important than the 9-2 in terms of getting victory conditions on. This guy's creating havoc for the German. This guy is winning the game for you. Now the Germans have to react to this guy. So what's that going to do for these guys? It's going to relieve pressure. He'll have to back up. This guy may have to go 1, 2, 2, 3, advance. This guy, the leader, may have to just abandon that completely. 2, 3, 4, 5, advance. Maybe something like that. Do we care? No, because guess what? He just gave up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings. These guys pretty much, with some pounding from this guy, 9-2 pounding the central point, cracking the egg, allows these guys to come up and will occupy these locations here. Will we take some casualties if these guys stick around? That's likely. We're likely going to break. But again, if you're out of range, then you could just break in place, right? If he's right here, if he's, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you could actually be broken right here and not have to route. Well, that's an open ground. You could low crawl grab 1 hex, but your 9-1, or your 8-0 will be your rally point. Rally them all back there, and just keep funneling them forward. If the end game ends like this, we don't control this. But these guys again move up. Now they could pressure here and the side where the 9-2 is coming in. So even though they don't have a leader, obviously we'd want to get a leader over there. If this is trouble over here, if he reacts like this, then these guys just sit here pounding stuff. Because if one of these guys breaks, are the Germans going to counterattack? Are these guys going to come out here and assaulting the Americans? No way. No way in hell. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to slow down the Americans. So they're never going to attack this. This unit is safe. He's safe. He's just going to have to self-rally later on. And then he gets back up there and fire. And again, you get your 12+3, 12+3. You take your shot, whichever guy you think is more valuable to break in your, pursuit of victory, and you take those pot shots. 12+3 over here. Look. You set him up here, he fires down here. This guy could assault move here, drop smoke. Maybe close combat. That's a 12+3 right there. The same shot as this. You have his 12+3 versus your 12+3. So, but if he breaks, you win. If you break, he doesn't win. He just delays you. So, again, understand what your strengths are of your nationality. Understand strengths of defensive positioning. Do you want to get across there and bust his ass? You want to get across his open ground? Yes. But this is where you're going to most likely win or lose a scenario. Sort of like what he was discussing is if a lot of these guys are up in his face. I mean, they're all these guys in the open ground. And what I would do is, if this unit is unbroken, right? Because this guy was unbroken. Get rid of all this crap. I think you got 337 somewhere. Let's get rid of just eliminate TMs. Right. These guys over here, what I would do is I wouldn't bother with these guys if there's even if they do the I'm going to crack the egg routine, right? If they could do this sort of bullshit here, it might be worth my while. Just very similar to my setup in S3 where I had all my conscripts appear. You're delaying them. These guys, again, we had a guy over here. Let me clone this guy. We had another 436 here and a couple broken, and these guys are over here. So 4, 4, 4, and then 2 minus 1. We break 3 of those squads. Are these guys getting across in the movement phase? Not really. Can they get across? Yeah, they could move closer. They could assault, move, smoke, that sort of thing. But then defensive fire will let the smoke dissipate. We prep fire. We could possibly break 3 of them. We're probably getting 2 of them with that many shots. And then defensive fire, we do the same thing. We ignore these guys, 4+, because we have these guys defending. If all these guys break in the middle, they simply just go right back here. And then the Americans go up here. Do we care if the Americans have that? Does this contribute to victory?
Not at all.
Nope. Only to the extent that the Americans are slightly closer, but it doesn't do anything. If we can manage to use these positions, because we don't care if we break here, because that's where we're moving back here anyway. If we could hold those positions and destroy these guys, because this is where his force is. You know, I mean, there's a strong force here, but like we said before, it'll take him 2 or 3 turns just to take this area. If we destroy half of this guys, if we break half of these guys and pin 1 guy or something like that, even these conscripts can keep these guys at bay if they remain in the open. Once they get in the buildings, then the game changes. Now it goes from 12+3 to 8+3. Now you lose as the Germans. You don't win that. You don't win that scenario. You keep the 4+1. You keep the 8 no modifiers. 4+1. 4 even. 4 even. 4 even. 3 minus 1. You know, we got 4 shots at even and better. And we're probably getting results on half of those. So let's say 2 guys break. Then he has 4 squads against 3, and then we had our leader down here, 3, 4 squads. In that case, if he does something like this, you fire over here, you assault move him up, and then you advance fire him on the other guys. That's another 1 and 2 like we covered before. So you just bring all the fire, and his 6 morale. If these guys are 8 morale units, you don't even think about doing that because you're not going to scratch him. It'll take you everything to crack 1 guy. You're not going to scratch him. You just kind of, that's when you kind of skulk. Well, these guys really can't skulk really anywhere, to be honest with you. They're just going to have to sit and break and then run. You're not skulking here. You'll just get destroyed. So 6 morale units, you can do that. If they're all 8 morale units, 4 6 8s, 6 4 8s like the Brits, you know.
Yep.
If these guys are 6 4 8s, they could walk out in the open. Because you know what the difference is? Right? Remember 8 morale? Pete says 8 morale is a lot like positive modifiers. Essentially, this 8 morale is just like the 666 being in a stone building. Or not a stone building, wooden building.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So essentially, when they just walk forward with their 8 morale, because their 8 morale is so high, it's just like they already have their inherent cover based on just the strength of their morale. And so, and that's really what you really need to take advantage of. You need to take advantage of the American smoke, the Americans' ability to bounce back. So you could take some crazy shots. You're going to break. You're going to break a lot as the Americans, but you're going to rally a lot as the Americans. Whereas these German conscripts are not going to rally a lot. So all you have to do is crack. If you do anything in this scenario, I think the ratio of conscripts to 447s is near even. If the Americans do anything in this scenario, target the 436s and crack them. Crack the egg of the 436s, and therefore he can't rally them fast enough. He has to roll 5s and 6s if he's not DM. You know, if he's in rally terrain. So he has to roll 6s. You roll 9s when you're not DM in rally terrain. He rolls 6s, and most of the time, he doesn't have enough 447s to cover the entire front. So he's going to get cracked somewhere, and that's where you make your push. You know, and that's why, in my silly setup, I forced myself up here to essentially all those units get the first fire, and that's pretty much it's one and done. I'm either going to break half those units at 8+1, which is really good sharp. I'm going to get a normal raw check on most of them, and then I can fire my prep fire again after that. Will some of my guys break? Yeah, you saw that happening, but it allowed me to slow him down a little bit in that. Still close game, but that's something you can do. Here, if the American realizes that all I have to do is pound you, you know, I mean, because even if he skulks and goes back, Americans don't care. He just goes to 16. He just fires 3 guys, 16 firepower. And if there's only 1 guy left, and if these guys are occupied over here, then you can do exactly what they were doing, is assault move advance phase. Because if he skulks and does this, guess what he's going to do? He's going to pound him again, and then he assault moves advance phase. So in turn 5, he could be here. Turn 6, he could CX to here, and the end of the game, he can CX a guy, you know, maybe over there. Oops, a leader back here, maybe a guy over here in those locations. But again, you're still gaining these locations. So I've never seen the Americans actually get back into this area, to be honest. But do they need to? No, not really. Not really. So, and again, just focus on what buildings you could take. If you could crack and take these buildings for sure, 100%. Let me see what. I don't need to move them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just this area over here. Here. This is 8 building locations, or 8. Well, actually, 8 buildings. It's the locations is what you want. 8 hexes. So that's right.
Right.
Right. So
25 building hexes. Yeah.
Right. So it's even more. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 16. I think that's 16 on this side. So you only need 10 more. And you might get 2 here. So it's 18, 20 because you had a strong force over here. And then 5 in here. This would be the fight. This is where your 9-2 ends the game, is when he slowly pushes through and crushes these guys. So yeah, I actually didn't even notice that the Germans didn't even have any leaders on this side. So this might be, I think he had the right idea in trying to push this side because there are no leaders. Anybody breaks over here, all of these buildings are the Americans. All of those are the Americans, because he has 1/8-1. So
yeah, it would be interesting sometime. I played this scenario a few times, and I've never tried to assault this way.
it's difficult.
It's interesting to see if you get an opportunity to do so, see what you could do.
Right.
You know, because if you can get into these buildings and get across the street, boom, you can just grab all these buildings here.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it'd be interesting. As I said, I've just never seen anybody do it. It's either you push up the center, or as I say, you keep a token force over here and your push is over here.
Right.
You keep an occupying force over on this side.
Right.
That's usually my strategy in this game.
But definitely the toughest place to push is in the middle. I think the Americans still have to show in the middle, because then you still have to show in the middle.
Yeah, you have to at least tie them down.
Right.
It's a kind of a stalemate-ish sort of tie down, and eventually you may wear him out and he's got to go back.
Right.
Yeah, you got to tie down. He's going to put his strongest forces usually here, so you got to tie them down.
Right. And so
you're usually on one side of it. He's usually over.
And like you were saying, Mark, the pressure that I see in this game is the game usually isn't decided by victory points in the middle, but this is what occupies the Germans' time, and the victory actually is determined on one side. Usually it's on this side for some reason.
Yeah, I've never seen anything happen on this side.
Usually I've never seen anybody like push in the middle and then penetrate through and get all the victory points that way. It's usually push, kind of get up here by the end of the game, and then these guys are through the side because they crack the egg on that side. I haven't seen a lot of eggs cracked on the left-hand side, but the right-hand side is where you see most of it being done. I gotta be honest with you. I think it'd be really interesting to try to attack on this side. You've got units over here. You might not even need to put anybody over there. If you slam these guys on this side, he runs out of targets to shoot at. I mean, smoke, and you're gonna punch these guys early. Smoke, and you've got all this hindrance there. If he sits up here, you just fire on him. If he doesn't sit up there, if he's like this, you've got hindrances, and therefore it's like a semi smoke. So is it tough? Yeah, it's still tough.
Yeah, I think it's a little tougher because I mean, as I said, just setting up everybody here is just a nice, nice fire group.
Yeah,
I mean,
it feels safe. It's safe and secure. It's like warm cocoa, sitting by the fire at Christmas time or Thanksgiving.
You've just got a lot of firepower. You can concentrate. It's fairly well isolated, and you're usually hitting units within 6. I mean, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you're just getting out of range.
Right.
You're in these buildings here.
All right.
You've got a lot of open ground to cover, and I think that's what kind of scares. I just haven't seen anybody try it because it just seems like this is the place to go.
Right.
All these woods over here, it just seems like that's just what draws everybody in.
Right. I think you're right. I think this attack, because people like to push, sort of like what Craig was doing. He moved he wanted to move his unit, keep them moving forward. And that's the key is give these guys time to crack the egg here, and then because I don't know where my other units went. Let's see, these guys are lined up over here, right? Then we could smoke this guy. We could try to smoke here. If he fails, he goes. Then the other guy goes 1.
It'd be a delay game,
yeah, and then just try and smoke the living shit out of this guy. Or he actually doesn't have to do that. He can go 1, 2, 3, smoke his own hex, because this hex side will then be affected by that smoke, which means movement over here will be stopped. If he doesn't have the movement, then another squad can go 1, 2, smoke this hex, and now that's a +3 shot versus moving units. And then if you had
you need a lot more patience, I think, to try that.
Yeah. So this attack over here is based upon smoking the center's shots on this side.
Yeah.
So, but it takes a little bit more coordination, and I've never seen it done before. I think this is a bold move over here with the heavy machine gun. I've never seen a heavy machine gun put on that side. It's very bold, but again, patience on the Americans. He just sits guys back, and 2 squads in each hex is a 24 + 4. He doesn't care what the modifier it is. 20 + 4 + 4 is going to break any unit that's going to be in this hex. And you're losing a very valuable piece of hardware.
I'm not sure I'd stick him there. Yeah, once he routes, there's no place he can go. It's
right.
just
he gets interdicted here, and then he's got a low crawl, and then you just then he gets annihilated next turn. And usually, again, no leaders ever on this side. They're always center. He's got 3 leaders, 1, 2, 3. Pretty much is what you see every single game, and yeah, there's a reason for that. So it's really really kind of odd because there are no leaders over here. To be honest, would make an even stronger case to push in that direction.
I'm looking kind of next time I play this, or if I see an opportunity that kind of presents itself, it'd be interesting to just try it, just to see if.
Right. Instead of because most of your leaders, because they're higher morale, let's say 8 morale, at least for the Germans, they're usually going to withstand firepower and not be damaged as much as the next unit, and so they will just route with the unit and give them a good routing capability. So it will be interesting if you guys play your next couple games. Just put the pressure on where his leaders are not, and just see how the game develops from there. Play any game. Just fire at these guys that don't have leaders, or in this case, if they're spread out, like if they're all centralized, it doesn't matter. They're just going to route back to the leaders anyway. But if they're in areas where he doesn't have a leader, and he can't, using what you guys know about routing, if he can't get to that leader, focus on that guy first, and then the next guy afterwards. Break that guy. That eliminates that possibility of that guy even shooting at you. Is he going to self-rally later on? Probably not, because most of your other guys are going to be doing some damage too on other parts of the map. So he's probably not going to be the priority rally target with that. But try and focus on areas where he has weak leadership. Well, he had 2 leaders over here. Weak leadership over on this side. This guy most likely will end up being broken. So for 1 leader in this area is pretty tough. So and again, that's very subtle. That's very subtle to see, because you generally have your plan of attack I want to go this side, and that side. But sometimes the opponent can give you something that that you hadn't taken into consideration. Like, hey, if I just break these guys over here, it may not be the best route for victory, but it can eliminate, like, say 25% of his force from ever rallying again, because you're just going to be continuing moving forward on those guys, continuing to DM those guys, and then they'll either have to low crawl or take interdiction. At that point, you just essentially catch up to them and annihilate them, or just force them out of the area where you need to go. I actually hadn't thought of approaching a game like that, especially in SK, but you guys know in SK that, you know, simply because the boards are a little smaller, but you can do that in a number of situations. I mean, you've seen a number of games where, you know, if this guy breaks over here, he just breaks, and then, you know, end of the game, he's like routed over here, and he's just been broken the whole game. I mean, take note at the end of the game of his broken units and say, wait a minute, I remember that breaking that 4-3-6 that stacked up over here. I remember breaking this guy over here, and he just routed, and he went to here, and then he just stayed there, and I just kind of ignored him and went on and won. See exactly how much impact that this guy had in the game. After you broke him, did he have any impact? And if he didn't have any impact and didn't rally, essentially you KIA'd him. Essentially, these are KIAs. You know, again, he's going to be self-rallying units that are up in the front, because this is where your pressure is going to be. He's probably not going to be looking at these guys. Probably. You know, if there's a DM guy here and he needs to be self-rallied, I'm probably going to rally this guy and just try to move a leader over there for next turn, simply because you need every single guy you can in this scenario. But that's me. I mean, other people, it's all based on game, you know, gameplay and game decision and game circumstances. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, but yeah, glass, 6 Morales glass, gentlemen. I've got a video coming out. It's round 2. I'll release it. I think it's gonna be released on Thursday or Friday, and you'll see how glass affects. And the difference being is those units are Italians, these units are Americans, and so when the Italians break, it's bad news. And you'll see the effect of the 6 morale unit moving willy-nilly, even with even shots, willy-nilly. Once they break, they're done. And my attacks, my dice were good. I'm not gonna lie, my dice were pretty good. But again, if you just get a normal morale check on a 6 morale unit, that's all you're really hoping for. That's all you're really hoping for, because it's essentially a normal morale check on a 6 morale unit is a 2 morale check on an 8 morale unit, which is really hard to get. It's much easier. You guys know, I don't need. Yeah, it's much easier to destroy those units in that aspect. So, anybody else have any comments, questions, something that came up that maybe I misspoke about, or anything like that? Maybe I did something wrong in the presentation that you say, hey, you know, this couldn't happen because I could just do this.
Well, I mean, I do have a question.
Okay.
I'm not sure now is a good time to bring it up, but I can at least leave it for the hive minds. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to close and I'm going to load. If everybody's finished over here, no.
Is everyone finished with this map here? Okay, I think it's
okay. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so no. All right, so I'm gonna open up mine here. I'm gonna load the game. Okay. All right, so you can sync to me, Mark. Okay. So most of us should be pretty familiar to most of us now, but I'm not looking specifically at tactics or anything. It simply is a rules question.
All right.
Going to advance this a little bit. I'm not going to bother with the moves. It's just going to be where people are at a certain point.
All right.
And we're getting there. We're getting close.
Germans really don't want you to move. All those shots. He's doing a number.
Okay, so I think we are. All right, so it's Defensive fire phase. I think.
Wow, this guy's lost.
Yeah. You'll see it when you start going through the files, but I think
Talk about how that -2 got there.
we go through that when we go through the
His parachute caught a gust.
right now at this point.
Okay.
So going to. Oh, okay. All right. No. All right. So actually, it was back. Back.
Oh,
Just
no
a
worries.
little bit.
No worries.
But this is the situation. So okay. So we're in the advancing fire phase,
Advanced fire
and
phase.
these units here want to fire at this unit.
Okay.
Okay. So if you notice here, this stack here is CX.
Correct.
This unit is not,
Uh-huh.
but he's got the hindrance here from the orchard.
Correct.
So if they fire group, what are the modifiers? Please specify the starter kit rule that allows you to state that. So the question was okay. So if this unit attacks, it's a let's say it's a 2+1. Okay, I mean we can figure out the exact odds.
He attacks at a +1, regardless of whether his firepower is
1. Okay, because he's an open ground.
Right.
Okay, but he's CX, so it's +1.
correct.
This guy is not CX. He's got line of sight there, so he would normally be +1 for the hindrance.
Correct.
Okay, so if they fired as a fire group, is it, let's say, 4+1 or 4+2?
What did you guys decide upon?
Well, we ended up going to the Bible, and they specifically state that you have to kind of bring in each kind of type of modifier. So you need to bring in both the CX and the hindrance, even though one is not affected by CX and the other is not technically affected by the hindrance. You have to kind of combine them in and say, no, it's +2. Okay, which is, and I think the A.5 rules basically says, this is why it might be a good idea to set up your fire groups, okay, so you can avoid all the cumulative, so I've always, there doesn't appear to be anything in the starter kit rules that specifically says how to handle the individual DRMs from different locations in a multi-hex fire group.
Okay, so I would look at fire group, wherever the fire group. I would start with fire group.
Right, that's where we started in the starter kit rules.
And where is the fire? I'm looking at where the fire group be.
That is in page 9. That's on page 9.
Page 9.
First column. The end of the first column.
Fire attacks, right? On the bottom.
Fire attack section. So we're at the bottom of the first column, page 9. So basically, all members of the fire group must be able to trace a line of sight. So okay,
Yeah.
And it goes through a few that says, hey, if multi-hex fire group discovers part of the FG doesn't have it, they're left out. They're forfeited. They're just marked as a marker. Units in the fire group with valid line of sight must still attack the target, but it's a smaller FG or a separate attack. The fire's option. If infantry in the same hex are going to attack the same unit, they must do so as a mandatory fire group. They may not make separate attacks unless using FT ordnance or subsequent ROF attacks. Okay, and that's it.
Right. Then you have to look for dice roll modifiers and effect for
Well,
CX.
Yeah. So dice roll modifiers, its effects, 3.2.3, which is toward the middle of page 9. It just basically says the dice roll is modified by adding any applicable DRM, such as leadership, terrain effect modifier, or line of sight hindrance between, but not in the firer's hex and the target hex.
Okay. Any applicable DRM is what we're looking for.
Yep.
Now go to CX. Where's the CX status?
Probably in
Probably
movement.
under movement.
Yeah, any infantry cat, it's in the middle column of page 12.
Or the funny thing is, or the definition which they left off. So, it says 331.
Right, and CX is the
Middle of
definition.
column 12.
CX would obviously be up in the definition section. That would be up to page 5. It just says counter exhausted the status of the units after it declares double time or uses all of its MF in the advanced phase. So
Okay. So so taking the CX, it says
CX units must add 1 to any attack die roll, maximum +1 they make or direct, and to the die roll for recovery, ambush, and smoke grenade tag.
right. So it just says any attack. So whether you're firing alone or firing in a group with other units that aren't CX, you add the +1 modifier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so see, it's because the CX unit is firing that, and then you take into consideration any hindrances that would apply, which is independent of the CX penalty. So it's like adding the hindrance to because the hindrance is not a TEM, it's a dice roll modifier. So you have a dice roll modifier for the CX, which only applies to that unit, and then you've got a hindrance modifier, which applies to a separate unit. And if they were firing into a TEM, then the TEM is another dice roll modifier, but not all dice roll modifiers are TEM. So you have all different fire attack modifiers coming together in that attack. So now, logically thinking, you would have to add those together because one guy's being penalized by it, and then the other guy's being penalized by the hindrance. Now, if the other guy were CX, right? If this guy was CX and there were no hindrance, then the rule specifically states a maximum of +1. So it's just +1 for everyone being a CX. So essentially, you're either going to get penalized with the CX or you're not, and it's only going to be +1. And the same thing in close combat. If you're attacking these guys in close combat, if they're stacked together, then it's not going to be a +2 to your attack in close combat or a -2 against you in close combat. It's just going to be a +1 or -1. Maximum penalty is +1, -1.
Okay.
So that.
Yeah, but again, this was I don't know. For me, this is like another example of. I mean, you go to the ASL rulebook and it's very like it's there. I mean, you know, and it didn't seem to be very ambiguous about that point. You know,
Right.
It's like these are separate things. You combine them together, and then there's that whole extra sentence where they basically say it might be a good idea to split up your attack. You know, I mean.
Right, and it specifies like, you know, well, it kind of it looks like it should have been put here because it talks about, well, if one guy doesn't have LOS, then he forfeits participation, and that's I think in the ASL rule book where they add in the yes, and you take, you know, if one guy's hindered by a shot, then he's also, you know, that penalizes the fire group as well, and that's just fire attack. Is there?
But I can certainly tell you the way that I've done it in the past until we had that kind of discussion about it was, all right, this guy's +1, this guy's +1. You take the highest total positive modifier, in which case they're both +1. So I would have normally treated that as a 4+1 before we had this discussion.
So that's where you're going for. Let's go with this. Let's go. Again,
Right, so
it's identifying. Let's say there's smoke here.
Yep.
And there's no hindrance. There's no AA8, AA9. Those guys are open ground.
Right.
What's the modifier in that case?
Right. So now normally I would have said, okay, so I would normally say, all right, this guy here would be, all right, he is +1 for CX and then +2 for the smoke. Okay. So this would be, so his total modifier would be +3. This guy would be +1. Okay, because of just the one hindrance. Oh, actually, yeah, he probably doesn't get through the smoke hack. So
correct.
So it's there. So he'd be +1. So I'd say, okay, it'd be a 4+3 attack.
Okay.
But now it might end up being a 4+4.
For what?
Well, I mean, so now let's assume this in ASL. Okay, it would be okay. This guy, you'd have the +1 for the CX, you'd have the +2 for the smoke, and you'd have the +1 for the orchard hindrance here, firing there.
Right. Right.
So I think using the ASL rules, I think it'd be a 4+4, or whatever this is. Whatever this is. I mean,
right.
X+4. Okay, we'll just say X+4.
Right. So what you were trying to get at is, because this is +1 and +1, I just get like the worst of either one.
I get the worst of the individual hexes, basically, right? The individual member of the fire group. I get the worst one.
Right. So if you had a +3 smoke here and a +2 smoke there, what would happen in that case? Let's just say, but by this single attacking unit, what would be the modifiers there?
That's well. In starter kit, there I don't think they're quite as specific. I think in ASL there's a rule that the modifier that the hindrances can't be larger than I think the number of hexes between the two targets or something like that.
Well, if they're equivalent, this is kind of what you mentioned earlier. If they're equivalent in distance, in this case, there's a hindrance on this side and a hindrance on this side. Even if that's, let's say it's grain. Let's say this guy was here, and your enemy was here, and your smoke was here. It's the exact same example, whether you have the +3 smoke or not. One side has more hindrance than the other. In this case, well, let me just do the smoke, because smoke has a tendency to do some really wonky thing. You take the higher of the two in terms of smoke.
Right.
So
yeah.
you're not being, so it's going to be +5 plus your +1 is going to be +3 plus your +1. The CX is not a hindrance, so therefore it's an additional modifier. It's not a hindrance, so therefore if this CX were gone, what would that attack be? If the CX were gone and the pins were gone, what would this attack be here? Whatever firepower, and then you have one hindrance +1, right?
So it'd be sorry. Oops, hold on a second.
That's all right. So
so right now, all right. So I mean, you certainly only have the +1 hindrance for the
correct. So that's, we're talking about hindrance modifiers. So there's only one hindrance that applies, and if this smoke were here, you'd have that hindrance as well. So this is a hindrance modifier. This is not a hindrance modifier. It's a separate modifier. So therefore, it's added as well as, it's not a hindrance. So you don't take the highest of the two hindrances, or if they're both equivalent, you just take the one. This is not a hindrance modifier. It's simply just a dice roll modifier to, attacks, close combat, picking stuff up, things like that. So it's just another penalty. The hindrance is a specific penalty to fire attacks. The hindrance has nothing to do with like picking up weapons, right? Whereas this one will affect your impact to pick up weapons. Therefore, they're independent in terms of definitions and the rules. And I think you're right. I haven't delved too far into some of the SK. The SK may not specifically make that distinction, but it does specify that CX will add one to your modifier, and it doesn't exclude. Well, it maximizes it to +1. So if you have multiple CX units, it doesn't. They're not cumulative. They're just, you either CX or you're not. And then you have all the other normal attacks, all the other normal modifiers that you would apply to your standard attack. So this is just, just one more penalty that you incur.
Right. Yeah.
So.
There seemed to be this idea about these classifications of modifiers.
Right.
Basically.
Right. Exactly. You're right.
Right. So you take the worst in this category, worst in this category. Now the categories may be a little fuzzy. Now, obviously, TEM is not like, well, you're firing at the same hex in the starter kit. I can't come up with a situation where you have different TEMs in the same, in the same location.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But again, I think this is just a point of the starter kit rules being somewhat opaque about this. I mean, they kind of, I don't know, at least it kind of felt like it. We had a bit of a large kind of discussion about it. I think we ended up resolving it correctly. I think it should have been like the +2, the one for the CX and the one for the hindrance combined together. And so I ended up splitting the attack up. So I ended up having like 2 +1s, 2 +1 attacks instead.
Right.
But it was just, I just thought I'd bring it up for people, because it is going to come up, in your games quite a bit, I mean, where you're just going to have multi-hex fire groups, and they're going to have different modifiers,
right.
And you just have to kind of accumulate them all together to a certain extent.
Right.
And with the idea saying that, there may be times when you want to split them up. So, but again, it's an example where it's like where in ASL, it's 8.5, it's very specific, it's right there. It just comes right out. And starter kit, it's kind of hazy, a little more nebulous, and a little harder to kind of decide how to play it. So I decided to bring that up for people who run into that situation in the future. So.
No, I think you're right. I think I've seen that situation before. I may not have seen it quite as often currently because, to be honest with you, until you really get into the vehicles, a lot of guys either have their own individual fire groups or things like that, or they don't. Either everyone's CX, or it usually doesn't occur where they're going through hindrances. They're usually stacked, like something like this, where they're not adding all that stuff together. So I haven't seen a lot of those, or they stack them together, and then that's more like the common situation. So whether or not that's being added properly, I don't know. Again, this is another benefit of being able to listen to other games where they're playing, where you, let's say you're going into questions and you're seeing some guy play, say, hey, I had this question, I want to see if it shows up in so and so's game and Tony's game or something like that, and I just spectate him. If you have the ability to listen to their conversation, you could actually determine whether they're adding the numbers properly, or maybe you're adding them improperly because they get into the same discussion you do, but they come up with a different answer than what you guys decided upon, and they've given their case. Oh yeah, the rule so and so over here says this, and that may be something that you probably didn't find. It is the SK rulebook, and it can be difficult to find specific things like that in it. So they may have found that, whereas you guys may have missed it for whatever reason. And you guys in the middle of a game, and your thoughts are displaced versus like just a gentle bystander, which already has one concept in his mind that he's looking for, and when it comes up, he can focus in on that. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, that was exactly it. Like, I always just had this concept of just saying, all right, this hex is at this modifier, this hex is this modifier. Which one's the highest? That's the one you take, and that's not what the rule is. It's certainly not the rule in itself. And so it was just interesting to just kind of go, oh, okay, that's another example. I played this for a while and just just subtly messed it up, and now it's like, oh, okay, cool, so you learn something, because I think later on I do something like this here, and firing at this hex, and now you've got the one hindrance from the grain here, and you've got this unit CX. Right. So this is a 20 plus 5, not a 20 plus 4.
Yeah, it's a big difference. The
CX.
Yeah.
So I especially kind of my style of play, I think I find I have a lot of kind of these multi-hex fire groups. Yep. And I'm using those as kind of bases of operation. And so for me, it's just something I've just got to be very careful of.
Correct.
It may be a detriment to having this kind of spread out, because now you've, instead of all being in one hex, whereas now it's, boom, it's plus, not only is it, plus 4, but you also get the leader, well, yeah, it's a 7-0 leader, so you don't get anything there. But, certainly if it's like an 8-1, then you get the leadership modifier because everybody's there.
Right.
So,
and that brings up a good point in terms of your style of play. And you have to take into account, I'm not saying that you have to take into account, but when you're playing, again, look at your units that you have in your fire group. Okay. So in this case, let's say these two units fire into, because they don't want to do the CX. They don't want to bother with CX. Mathematically, these units will be firing at 12 plus, let's say it's prep fire for whatever reason. 12 plus 4, right? So if you look at the 12 chart and you add 4, you to get a morale check, you need a 5. Now, on this one over here, you switch it to the 20 chart instead of the 16. So now that 20 plus 5, what would you need for a morale check? You need
probably like it's going to be on the
20 chart. Yeah. You would need a 6. So in this case, simply because the firepower of the units essentially for the CX, for you to essentially want to use a CX in the same fire group, you need to boost that table up 2 columns. And the Americans, 6747s, can boost it 2 columns, going from 12 essentially to 21. Whereas if these were 4, 4, and 4, you go from 8 to 12. And so your 4 firepower is going to be negated by the +1. So there's no point in firing that unit.
Yeah, under like almost any other circumstance, right? It would just be literally be like the American 747s, the paratroopers or Marine units, because they're about the only units I think that have 7 firepower in the game.
Right.
This particular setup. Yeah, I mean, in this case, yeah, I'd still probably take the 20 plus 5, but you at least have to be aware of it. But yeah, as you said, even if it was like 3 American first line squads, then no, because now you're talking a 12 to an 18. You're not getting up to 2 columns. You're only getting up to 1. So it's literally a big shot.
So did you guys lose connection to the server?
Yeah, it looks like we did. Yep.
Okay, good. It wasn't just me. Okay.
No,
But everyone still got the map on the thing. But yeah, in that sort of case, when you guys are looking at combining your fire groups with CX units, pretty much unless they have high firepower, 838s are a really good one because each 838 can adjust it by 2 columns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty badass. I mean, 838s are badass. And 747s are very similar, especially if they're given their assault fire capabilities, point blank. And so the CXs will not affect those units quite as much. You can kind of get away with things, but pretty much the rule is if you're combining with a single 447 with its CX, it won't do anything. Now, if you had 2 447s that were CX'd, there's your 2 column shift. And so therefore they would actually increase your potential of affecting that shot. Your odds of impacting that individual, whatever target may be, is actually increased instead of just nullified. So, and because sometimes you'll add that shot, let's say you have 2 targets, sometimes you'll add that shot, think that will make a difference. Well, it won't. Whereas you could take that shot and do a 4+1 at a guy in the open, which will give you 2 individual shots at slightly lower odds on each. But at least you have fire in 2 different directions, sort of like the 4.36s in the other example we had. So,
yep.
But yeah, that's a good point there. And yeah, the CX, and that's the detriment of the CX is it has a tendency to stick around through your opponent's turn, and when your opponent is CX, gentlemen, use that to your advantage. So say, hey, he's CX, pretty much. That's a free +1 modifier I have. It doesn't negate the movement in the open that Mark reminded me, thankfully, about, but it does give you +1. So it essentially turns your movement in the open, like you're busting ass down the road, into, quote, an assault move in the open. And so it's very beneficial. Use that to your advantage in case you want to maneuver someone that was kind of like in a pickle before. And that way you can jump on top of that sort of thing. Oh, wow. I'm going to cancel that. That way you can jump on top of that opportunity when he is CX. Try and take advantage of his CX status. It may be even to the extent of trying to ambush him in close combat because he's going to have a +1 on ambush. And if you happen to ambush him, you get a -1 for ambush and a -1 for CC. That can change the tide of a particular scenario. Especially in a game like this, if the Germans are CC'd here, the Americans have more firepower. That's a 3-2 straight up. And then if they get the -1 on top of that, then that's when the pain starts happening. And try to take advantage. It's not always going to be there, but if you can, that's the only time that I would say, hey, let's go in close combat. We're going to take that one shot, and especially it's just a good possibility that you will come out on top. It's like having a -1 leader with you. So. And your ambush capabilities are much higher. So, and if you have a -1 leader on top of that, you definitely want to bust his ass because that's going to be -3 if you ambush him. That's huge. That's just gigantic. At that point, you could go 1 to 4, and you need like a 7 for casual reductions, whatever that might be. Now, 1 to 4 would be 6 for casual reduction. That's huge. You take a half squad, into a stack. So. Yeah, good points to make. Good. We covered the time, gentlemen. I'll leave my comments for the other game until next time. It will cover a concept based on armor and just certain situations that I saw spectating this one game in terms of having infantry and armor in close proximity and what advantages and disadvantages they may or may not pose to one another. But usually, pretty much, if you're assaulting, attacking, you want your infantry close to armor. And there are a number of examples in this particular game where it really helps minimize the damage that the enemy can do upon you. So let's say his AT gun pops out, takes your tank out, and he's pretty close proximity. then your infantry can make him pay for that by when he exposes his AT gun and take out the AT gun so other tanks aren't affected by that. So that's the concept I'll go into next Tuesday. And then 100% of the time, the Tuesday after that, I'm going to be reviewing all the files for what I have right now, trying to pick and choose the stuff, what I could see in there that might be things like that. I'm sure one of the examples was probably the game we saw earlier, but I'll have to analyze that a lot more. I have to spend a lot of time on that to see exactly, because I have to bust through like 5 files. So, but anyway, thank you, gentlemen, for showing up. I appreciate your guys' continued interest in just showing up and having a good time on Tuesday. Hopefully you're having a good time on Tuesday. And and then the great discussions we have here. Lots of good questions. Again, I mean, these are commonplace examples, especially Mark's example and Craig's example and Scott's questions and things like that that come up in those games and different ways to approach things. So very good results, and I'd love to see S3 with guys attacking on the right hand side. I might be willing just to play that game again, just to shove everybody on the right hand side and just let the shit hit the fan. And because most of his 4-3-6 is going to be on the left hand side, if you just ignore those guys and just bust ass and just keep busting ass on the right hand side, that'd be kind of funny. So
it is something to think about. You know?
And if you guys play S3, please don't put your flamethrower over in the woods, the way you have to cross 4 or 5 hexes of open ground. It pretty much really needs to go in the center. Just put it in the center. That's what it's for. It'll never reach its destination on either of the flanks, more than likely. And it's you have no range with that thing. You have to crack the middle with a flamethrower. So I don't care if you burn the flamethrower on the first shot. Please don't put it on the flank on the left-hand side. It's just the -1. The penalty for carrying a flamethrower in the open is really bad. It's really bad, and so you just don't want to be stuck out in the open with that damn thing. But yeah, I've seen that a couple times. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so you're just gonna die with it, yeah, I haven't seen you guys do that, so luckily that's a good deal. But anyway, thank you, gentlemen, for showing up. Again, if you have any questions on this, post them in the tactical question sessions. I've been seeing more activity there. It's really cool. And so, yeah, if you anything you guys see, whether it's in other games or your games, just bring it up and I just post it. And there's a lot of guys here that answer the questions, so everyone's jumping on them and answering them pretty quickly. So there we have it. Another great episode of Tactical Tuesday. Lots of really good questions, lots of really good observations in this particular episode. I enjoyed going over a lot of the detailed questions, little nuanced stuff, little thing here and there, little thing, sometimes you just gotta step back, refresh, remind yourself what's applicable to a certain situation or what rule is applicable to a certain fire attack. And with all the different rules that's bouncing through your head, it's easy to kind of, am I remembering that correctly? And then, yes, more than likely you are, but just go back to the rules and refresh it. Ask 4 or 5 friends of yours to see what their thoughts are. And, when you find it in the SK rules, highlight that to make sure that when you comes up again, you say, I remember I highlighted that, and you go, boom, right to it. That way you don't spend 20 minutes looking for a rule that you know is there. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time on Tactical Tuesday.